Hi, this is Julie at Love's Beginning, and today I wanted to talk about the tension in definitions and labels because the idea that came through to me is that when we're invested in definitions and labels, we're we're invested in control from the perspective of the separate, cut off, and vulnerable self. So if we look at that during our day, anytime we define something, anytime we label something, is there any, oh boy, the word sorrow just came to me. That felt really big. Like there's a lot of sorrow we're not facing. And so if we look into our definitions and labels today, we might feel some of that. Um, it's an attempt to control things from the perspective of a separate, cut off, vulnerable, guilty self. And this self, this entity, the ego, first of all, let's look at the positive aspect of ego because anytime we set up a fight with something that is other than what we are, and all of that is a fiction because we are everything collectively. Okay, so anytime we set up a fight with something that we have to struggle against and triumph over, we're engaging in a fiction. So, to talk about ego, we should appreciate what ego gives us. So, when we love, come powerfully into the illusion and act within it, and let what we are flow into the illusion through us. Um, we say thank you to ego because ego is what gives us, what do we want to say? The opportunity to express through a body. It gives us a name. It gives us an address. It gives us all the equipment we need to express here and to communicate here in the way that is accepted. Um, I'm getting a funny picture about that. They're showing us talking, right? So we think everything's based on thought. We convince ourselves that things are happening because we think they're happening. This is kind of going beyond what I get, but like I'm receiving it and passing it on. So I'm a little tickled as it's coming through. So we're talking, but they're showing me we're just like it's all like they're saying you think you're speaking in different distinct languages, but it's actually all nonsense. And you're giving yourself this experience of communicating by talking in separate words, because you think you need that. And so when kids come in, they don't need it at all. They're not talking. They know how to do this without words, but they slow down because we're incredibly backwards and elaborate. And they're saying Baroque. It's like lots of fancy curly cues and complexities we're using these words for. We don't actually need to do that. It's like they show me like very Baroque high heels on a man, something that would seem not practical, not necessary. And comparing it to just the telepathy, the communication, the tuning into what we are, the receiving, that, well, oh, I guess what I'm doing now, and translating into language. So I always did want to be a translator. guess I guess got my wish. Um, that was a funny view on language. But they're saying that's a breaking down and a defining and a labeling. This word means this, that word means that. Right down to, no, I'm not going to say that word. They're suggesting some really offensive words and asking me to feel the laughter at the fear of the word. This has been coming up in my life a lot lately in conversations with my family. We've been talking about the power of words, and I've been noticing how we're the ones who give the words power. So to bring this back to what I was saying, okay, I was at appreciating ego because we don't want to fight with it. And I'm not sure how I got into language, but language is defining and labeling. And communication. Okay, ego permits us, that's where I was. Ego permits us to communicate using language, using separation and definitions and labels. So that's where we're like, thank you, ego. You are a practical tool. We don't fight the ego. It's just that all the thoughts that ego suggests, I mean, be encouraged to look at them again as pre-recorded messages. And I'm hearing, you did it, you did it. This is something we put in place. It's good when we take responsibility. So if you can say, I did it, I am the power, and I put this communication by ego through thought, through disturbing thought. If you look at ego thoughts, they are always disturbing in some way. So through the disturbance of thought, it keeps me in this state of dissonance and running scared. It sustains this experience of time, which also keeps us running scared. It sustains this experience of believing that the ego version of us is what we are and no more, and that we die, and that there's an ending to us, and that we have to scramble to control from the perspective of a separate self. Okay, so we're not going to fight the ego. We're going to observe, I did it, we did it, I did it, that we put it in place, and thus remain empowered, because we all collectively are the power and are the strength. We're not going to fight with what we put in place. It's going to be used in the service of remembrance for all, in the service of healing for all. So when healing and love can come through this vessel, which is only the outpicturing of thought, looks real, not actually real. It's an experience I'm giving myself. And when I remember I'm doing it myself, not alone, I'm empowered. I stay in the power. So what they're saying is today, when you're employing definitions and labels, pay attention to the feelings. Is there a feeling of sorrow? They're asking me. Is there a feeling of sorrow threaded through this? Like, oh, I've been left alone, and I have to make the best of what I've made here, which is the illusion. So I will dwell within my illusory house and arrange things to my liking, and place great importance on this illusion and protect it and cherish it, because I am entirely, completely cut off from my parent. And my parent will be very angry when my parent realizes what I've done. And so I better hide. I'm hiding with this illusion, and I'm cherishing this illusion. They're saying the sorrow of that, feeling bereft, cut off, alone, as if we have done wrong in making the illusion. We were created more individuated as souls, as spirits. We're individuated aspects of all that is, completely innocent, nothing but love. That's each one of us. And go to the biggest villain who pops into your mind right now. It's that one too. So go down into the core of that one. See the light shining out from the core of that one. It's that one too. It's important to do this without exception. There's no exception, because you can't get back to the wholeness of who you are, which is everything, without including everybody. We can't exclude anybody if we're going to remember who we are. So if we go to those labels and judgments and definitions today and see if there's any sorrow there, they're saying, first of all, when you feel it, it's an opportunity to release it and to know how loved you are and how loved you always have been. You were, as an aspect of creation, were experimenting with what is possible. Is it possible to forget who I am? For a while, yes, and that's why time was invented. Time was made in service to the illusion. And so we can hide in time as long as we want. But when we don't want anymore, when what we want is remembrance, we will gently take time and set it down. And you can do this while you are still expressing in an environment that includes time. You just allow what you are to come through you. What you are, very simply, with no labels or definitions except one, your love. Okay, maybe just the one. If you just allow that to come through the body, to employ the voice, to employ the body in action, then love comes into the illusion through the flavor of what you think you are as a separate being. You're connected to everything, but the you used to think you were separately does have its own beautiful flavor that harmonizes with everything else. And so you don't lose that. You don't lose the beauty of the individuated aspect. But the individuated aspect is always connected to the whole. So as we're going through the day, we catch ourselves labeling and defining. And if you can observe how the labeling and defining is connected to effort, and if you can observe how the effort is connected to the desire to control, and if you can observe how the desire to control is connected to the idea that something is wrong and you have to struggle to maintain something, or else you have to struggle to fix something, or else all that. And then if you can invite yourself to see behind that, what is this struggle about? Without giving any meaning to what you're looking at within the illusion. Okay, that's reactivity to the illusion. What is all this struggle about? And invite yourself to feel. Is there sorrow there? Is there anything else there? Is there panic there? And know in that moment when you've gone back and back and back and back and back from that instant of definition or labeling, in that moment you are the light that is shining on what appears to be happening with this struggle. And as the light shines on the struggle, you just look at it and you wonder and you're curious. It dissolves. You can feel it dissolving. You can feel the tension go. And so they invite us to this because they say the miracle is what wants to come through us. And miracles will be what comes through us for a while until collectively our perception unifies, smooths out, till there's great trust and joy amongst all of us. So in the meantime, miracles are supposed to come through us. But what would block miracles coming through people? Definitions, labeling, trying to remain in charge, trying to control. Now you, as you truly are the power. So you are what's in charge, along with the energy of everything else. That's the truth of it. But within the illusion, it could be that your character, your separate self, is engaged in a struggle to hold on to a power that's not true power at all. It is more of the outpicturing of thought. If I can think in this way and control this thing, I'll get this result, I'll see this result, I'll feel satisfied that I'm on top, that I'm controlling things, that just watch for that feeling. And if you get that feeling, if you feel yourself engaged in a struggle, you can just ask yourself, well, what's behind that? What is this about, really? Just be curious. What is it about, really? And when you're spending that time, that's the use of time right now, is for healing. When you're spending that time wondering, what is this about, really? What's the truth of this? Let the truth of this come to me now. Then you're using time as it should be used. You're dissolving the blocks to the miracle coming through you. The miracle is true communication, mind to mind. There's really only one mind, but we have these, what we see as separate office cubicles within it, and we guard our cubicles in a very amusing way. If you You allow it to be shown to you, and you allow yourself to feel when you are guarding your cubicle, and you allow yourself to see throughout the day when you think others are guarding theirs, that it's mirroring something back to you. It can be kind of a funny journey to step out of the cubicle into the common room and say, oh, I don't need this anymore. So when you've stepped out of the cubicle into the common room, communicate, then you can communicate with others who are not other at all. And then you can allow through you something miraculous. It could just be a shift in mind that nobody knows is coming through you. And who are you anyway? It could be maybe you lift a car up today. It could be maybe you're in a situation where you share with another the strength to do something like that. It could be any of the biblical things you think of as miracles. It could be somebody just feeling very loved in your presence. It could be anything at all. We don't have to define it or label it. It's simply a mode of communication that comes through us, that we're willing to allow to come through us, that helps people correct their perceptions about what we are, who we are, what our power is, what we're engaged in right now, which is a collective healing, and helps bring everybody into alignment. Now, here's one of the things that blocks the miracle. Great fear. Fear of an entity more powerful than you that is maybe trying to seduce you into giving up what you perceive to be as your separate self-control, so you will be like sheeple. And then once you give up that separate self-control, you may harm your fellow beings if you don't have control anymore. So this is like the last stand of ego right there. So what they say is just pan the camera back, because there are many, 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 many levels of illusion. And you go deeper, deeper, deeper into thornier and thornier ones to just look at it, to just look at the illusion. And they're saying even that, if there's some massive mind control project to bring people into a state where they're easily manipulated on behalf of a power that wants all power for itself, first of all, we should remember that experience is the outpicturing of thought. So with our thoughts, we can encourage this outcome. They're saying thoughts like this are already being thought. And if we look for evidence of such a thing happening, an idea of mass mind control by powerful people, got to take that word power with a grain of salt, because that's not true power. You will find evidence for it. So if you want to go be an investigative reporter and you want to look for evidence of this, you will definitely find it. Okay, but we have to look at what power is. And the power those ones seem to be accumulating is not true power. It's only power that has an effect when we are engaged in ego. And when we are engaged in ego, we are engaged in ego controlling everything. Okay, ego is a nice tool for us to come into the illusion, and thank you, we don't fight it. But if you want ego to run everything, you're voting for your disempowerment because you're failing to recognize the power that you are. So let's go back to the scenario where you find evidence of this huge mind control program. If you know who you are, that can't have any control over you. It's a very simple remembrance of who you are. And when you remember your empowerment, what you are doing is a beautiful, beautiful thing, because you're connecting to every mind in any program or team effort that is trying to harness what it sees as the power of the collective on behalf of a small group. And yes, you will find evidence of these efforts out there, but don't freak out because the power that we are is shared and benign. The power that they appear to be trying to accumulate is illusory power, power that shows up as power within the illusion when we believe in the illusion. And when we know this about them, if we think of the ones who may be actively engaged right now in trying to accumulate power from masses and to harness it for themselves, we know who they are. We know they are love. And now we're connecting to their minds. And remember, we're always either pushing their minds further into the illusion and this kind of desperate need for power, or pulling their minds, inviting their minds back to the love that they are. We are that power. Just by knowing who we are, we know who they are too. We don't need anything to allow this power to come through us, and to allow this communication to come through us, and to allow healing. It's very, very simple. You don't need any money to do it. You don't need any technology to do it. It's nice to have your non-physical team around you, helping you. They'll never leave you. They'll always be there for you to kind of counsel you through the layers of illusion. And when you get to some of those last ones, where you'd want to hold on to false power to fight another false power, then it's easy to say, oh, you know what? I think I'd rather have the most powerful power. Thank you very much. And that one is what we are. And if you think of those villains who are busy with a mind control program, remember they're playing a divine role. They're there for you although they don't consciously know it. Okay, they're letting you go first into awakening. They're there for you at the last level of illusion, so you can kind of freak the heck out for a moment as you look at it and be like, oh no, am I like going to give my power up and the whole thing's going to come crashing down? They're there for you as an illustration so you can see, oh my goodness, that's the chase after false power. And that's only what I've done all my egoic-centered life once I've attached to it really and stopped. I forgot that everything was okay. I forgot to kind of just dance with the joy of life. I got on a trajectory where I was scrambling and trying to accumulate and trying to say, that's only what they're doing, isn't it? It's only what they're doing in desperation. And it's a divine role. And one of the last levels of illusion, so we can look at it, love them, see it, set down the false power, and say, today, let's let our true shared benign power of love, they share it too, it's what they are, come through me today. And when you let every day be that, you are activating that in them. They are not other than what you are. You're inviting them into true power. If they want power so badly, let's give it to them. And you do it just mind to mind, just by seeing who they are, just by seeing their innocence. And yours. If you see theirs first, then you can see yours too. There's forgiveness there. So this is some big stuff, but it's some of the deepest layers of illusion stuff. It's one of the last things you'd find some altruistic reason to hold on to a false power. So today, let's just look at the labels and judgments and definitions as they come up and feel how they feel. and encourage ourselves to connect with a non-physical team around us that is always there. And that's just a matter of just taking a breath, resetting, and having the intention, I will accept all the help that is here for me right now. And flowing with all that is, letting the speech come through us that is helpful, letting the actions come through us that are helpful, and just staying in that place of trust and knowing who we are and who everybody else is. So I hope that helps you. It certainly helped me to receive that, because there's still that kind of last level of freak out. No, I've got to hold on. I can't let go. It seems much lighter now that I've talked about it. So thank you, and I will talk to you later.